Let's have an honest conversation. Hey guys, so today I'm just going to have an honest conversation with you about my experience of being a HackMotion user, and more importantly, in my case, a HackMotion coach over the last year or so since I've had the unit. We're going to discuss how I've actually found it to use personally, how I found it to use in a coaching environment, and then what has happened with the product itself in the last year. Let's start with how I found it personally to use. Now, I personally am very much in the knuckles down guy. When I've hit balls with it, I found it interesting, but when I do say the guided practice, I naturally have a pretty good wrist action, having spent too many years than what I'd like to be honest about, figuring out that the wrists go from sort of a cupped position to a flat position to a bowed position, and then back to neutral, and then back cupped again. I wish I had this tool 10, 15 years ago. It would have saved me at least 5, 6 years. That's for sure, learning that. Instead, I learnt using coat hangers and mucking around and trial and error, but I never had this toy. So from a personal perspective, it's been fun. I haven't used it a ton, probably nowhere near as much as I should do. There is another whole section in there that it has a whole bunch of real heavy data that I haven't really dived into, to be honest. But it's certainly been interesting. There's one thing I wish I had done, is taken it out to the golf course and actually played golf with it, and noticed that when I've hit a good shot or a bad shot, and then had looked at the measurements to see if it's different. The interesting or the challenging part from a personal user space is always getting it set up exactly the same, putting it on the same place in your glove, putting the wrist exactly in the same place, because that's obviously going to affect your range of motion. The beautiful thing of how it works is automatically almost adjusts every swing, that range changes. But if you're trying to set a benchmark on a perfect shot or something, it's going to be pretty tough when where you move the sensor here and here in relationship to each other. Yes, it zeroes out in the calibration, but it's always going to be tough. But there'll be certain patterns, and it'll be like with TrackMan numbers, it'll be like a phase 2 path relationship. So a relationship between how much your wrists go from extension to flexion, there'll be a thing. Next, and certainly what I've used it way more for is in a coaching situation. It's been interesting getting players to use the drills, is mainly what I've used it for, to teach guys or girls what it feels like. In most cases, not necessarily too much in the setup to the takeaway. Those drills are only brand new, which I'm going to have a look at soon, but more for the average golfer to feel like what it feels like as they're going back to get this lead wrist in a flat position or a slightly bowed position, if that's your preference. But most players are hitting it high right field. So for them to learn what it feels like to actually get the wrists to close down and have this golden move that golfers generally don't have. Most golfers, certainly that walk in the door, come in and they have the shaft steepening and transition in the face, cupping or opening, which then puts them in a spot through impact where they having to stand up, chicken wing scoop, open the face, and they have that lovely chicken banana combination. Whereas with most of these drills that they have, especially that MotoCycle Drill that they came out with, was really useful for players to be able to go up here and then come down in slow motion and feel what it's like to have both the wrist maintaining angles and actually getting them used to what it feels like to have that shaft twisting and face closing as they're coming down. So then the shaft stays on plane while the face closes. Now you can do that obviously without this, but the haptic feedback some players find really good when it's buzzing, and then that sound of an impact already. Good tool. So when someone comes in and I find, look, your major issue is not your body movement, it's not your alignment. Your biggest issue is from the top of the backswing, or when you're getting into the backswing. Your club face is just simply in the wrong place, generally too open. And as you come down, you're having the club face stay open. You don't know what it feels like to both close the face and keep the shaft on plane. Then what this teaches players is extremely valuable. And then once they got that feel, being able to take it away to go, once they got that feel to be able to go away and try and remember it, obviously is tough. That's where if they had their own HackMotion would be great. But it's a very useful tool for teaching those feels I've seen. Out of all the tools in the toolbox, it's quite helpful for that combination of events. Now, from an app perspective, a product perspective, the strangest thing I find with these guys is they keep improving their product without changing the price or asking for an extra subscription fee. That is, it's relieving and it's fantastic. It's very different from everyone else in the marketplace. Is always asking subscription fees, or as they upgrade the product, they ask you to pay more. Obviously, there is an upgrade here where you have different levels, which you can definitely upgrade into or whatever. But there isn't this situation where you've bought a product and then over time you have to keep paying for it just to keep using it, or the same features that you paid for at the start. That's what I'm talking about. On the contrast, the original product has improved without me spending any more money, which I'm about to go through now. But the drills library has blossomed, and now it has takeaway, transition, downswing, more drills. It's really, really nice to have that. Obviously, it's fun because it's almost every time I switch it on, which hasn't been often enough, but every time I switch it on, I'm like, oh, there's something new to try. And today we're going to go through a couple of the new drills, certainly the ones that I want to see how good they are. Previous videos I've definitely done the MotoCycle Drill, which I think is absolutely brilliant, as I've already mentioned today. And also finding the right top position. I love that drill. But here we've got a stable wrist takeaway, which I really want to see what it does. And then this Faldo Drill that I've seen a few other content users do, but I'm not sure exactly what patterns it's integrating. So we're going to cover a couple of these new drills, show you how they work. They're always in this beta thing, inside takeaway. Yeah, it's interesting. So this drills just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger for no extra cost. And if they continue to do that as a company, which pray tell, hopefully they do, it's a great product to buy that you know, okay, I'm going to get it, and every time they make it better, I don't have to find more money. I can just keep it, and it keeps improving with me as I do. And it keeps solving more and more problems. There's only so many problems you can solve with this much space of real estate, considering the whole body used to swing a golf club, but they seem to be managing to do it. All right, let's start with one of the new ones, a beta stable takeaway. Now, I haven't calibrated it or anything. What is this all about?
The goal of this drill is to help you feel what it's like to keep the correct wrist position throughout the backswing till takeaway. Here's how to do it. Start in your normal address position and hold still. HackMotion will use this as a reference to calculate your takeaway position. Begin your backswing slowly, avoiding wrist extension. Slight flexion is okay. Complete the rep by finishing your backswing. After each rep, we'll show how well you maintain the necessary wrist position. Start with slow, controlled reps. Once it starts to feel consistent, gradually build up to full swing speed while maintaining the correct takeaway motion. Don't rush. Take your time between reps to lock in the correct feel. Check out coaching for assistance if you feel like you're stuck. Happy golfing.
Okay. That's pretty good. Let's see what it does. Start draw. I am right-handed at the side. Yeah. Start calibration. Yep, feels pretty level to me right there. Beautiful. Same position. 30 degrees. Cool. On or hybrid. Done. Okay. Let's see what this is all about. Okay. Okay, so I'm in the backswing. That's a pretty good spot right there. Hands outside. As soon as I go too bone, stops giving me the feedback. I'm too cupped, which is why I get like my wrists are just in a good spot. I'm in there, and then as I keep going, I'm going to keep it in that. Which is just going to be a lovely flat lead wrist, isn't it? That's a good spot. That's a great little drill, isn't it? It's just so simple. To have that feedback as a golfer, it's going to save you so much time. And as I said, it sets every time. Slowly does what it says. Now, obviously while I'm doing this good with my wrists, I need to still be, obviously it doesn't care where I'm at. Cool. But while I'm doing this slowly, I can feel it buzzing away happily. I still need to have my body turning, recentering into a good spot. Now my tendencies in the golf swing, or feel-wise, I like to, because my tendency is to get a little bit too active through impact, a little bit too much roll, I get the club face too close too late. So my tendency is I like to feel like I'm getting a little bit more towards that boat area there, which would say too flexed, but you're having that feedback, which is great. And if you've got a practice swing here like this, which is teaching you how to get your wrist to work correctly, and you're having to do it slowly, holy, that's great. I mean, if you're learning golf, this is going to save you so much time. Yep. Love it. When I'm looking past the camera, I've got a big mirror there too, way back. But it's great anytime you can have any feedback tool that you can be looking at the back of the golf ball, okay? And then you can make a backswing while still looking at the golf ball and get a feeling for where you're trying to get to. That's great. Now obviously where the trail arm structure is definitely going to be dependent on your ability, how much range of motion you have here. That's another whole discussion for another whole video, but that's cool. It's a great little video there. I love it. Now I haven't used that with any players yet, but I'm going to, because for the guys that get the club early inside, it's going to be so good. Plus, when it's doing it slowly, it gives me time then to teach a player as the wrists are staying in position, I'm pushing lead side, I'm getting pressure forward. At the top, we've done that, the Faldo Drill. What is this all about?
This drill will help if you tend to overswing. We'll work on reaching a solid top position with just the right amount of wrist hinge. Not too much, not too little. The idea is simple. Preset your top of swing position at the start, then complete your backswing by turning your shoulders. Here's how to do it. From your normal address, lift the club until it's parallel to the ground without moving your hands. HackMotion will guide you once you're in the right position.
Okay, it's going to be interesting, because the original Faldo Drill, I always used to put neck into a spot where the club is very toe up, and then even here when he did it, it'd always be this debate of does he move his hands in line with the right thigh, or is it just straight up? But if it was toe up, I always had the issue with it being toe up here, because then if it comes down and it's still toe up, there's a lot of club face rotation that has to happen through a very short time span. So I could be hypercritical of this one, but, and then obviously if it's doing this and it's setting it to there, and then your wrists are getting into flexion in front, what interesting habit are you teaching players to get there? Because that's counterintuitive to the previous one. But let's see. Okay, go to address. Beautiful, get into position. What is position? What if I'm in the wrong position? I'll get finish the top. Okay. What if I have the face open though? Wrists are too flexed, so it is looking to get your wrists into a... Oh, cool. Alright. Problem with this drill you have to be careful of is you can easily get the club too inside and then you go back. Now it is teaching you how to get the club face into flexion early. Then what I would call this almost the burn and turn method. This would be good for hitting fades, right? Where you get used to a player, or it'd be a shut face fade, where you get the player to get used to shutting the club face early. Not too shut though. Anyways, get it shut early and then turn, and then from here, burn and turn. And it's all about getting shut face player that turns to the golf ball violently. This is an interesting one. Certainly if you're a player that had too much roll of the face early, so if I go to setup, I'm assuming it's going to tell me I'm getting too much extension. So if I rolled the face, yeah, wrists, flex your wrist. So it's teaching you not having the face too open as you're doing it, it's getting you into a neutral to a strong club face position here, where the wrists have effectively actually gone back and behind me. There you go, that's what the wrists are basically doing. Interesting drill. I don't know, I prefer the first one where you're actually getting used to the wrists working in a much more of a flow-like action, whereas here, if I'm just teaching my wrist to go from there and then get into an interesting spot where they're going to be, too flexed, just right, there. Yeah, it's interesting, and then you keep them connected like that. Yeah, not enough hinge, it's hard to hinge without. Interesting one, I should probably try to hit a shot on that. Yeah, again, if you're teaching, that would be a better habit than being the guy that's just, rotating the face open would be the worst thing you could possibly do, or didn't actually hinge your wrist properly. At least you are learning there that the wrists don't hinge like this, they hinge on a flat plane like that. That would be the good part about that drill, I would assume, right? There, get them into position, and then once they're in the spot, you're just maintaining it. It's fine. I prefer the other one where you're having to go back all the way slowly and get the wrist progressively going from extension into flexion as opposed to just chucking them in there early. But for some players, this is going to be Goldilocks zone stuff, I guess. What else is new? Inside takeaway drill.
If your takeaway tends to get too far inside early, this drill is for
so if you
you.
whip it on the inside,
Here's how
so
to
I'm
do it.
guessing here it's going to be the opposite. It's going to try and get me to
dress
keep my wrists
and hold
somewhat
still.
in extension to keep the club
HackMotion will
outside.
use this position to calculate your ideal takeaway position. Begin your takeaway slowly, focusing on keeping the club head slightly outside your hands. HackMotion will give you instant feedback at the takeaway.
And depending on your preferences of body movement, because everyone's different how they like it, I mean, I prefer that the wrist doing very little in a one-piece takeaway is that the body's pulling it back up on plane. But it's
check out coaching for assistance.
let's see. Let us see. Start draw. Address. Your backswing. Alright, so it still actually wants me to set my wrists a little bit. So if that's cupped, it doesn't mind face rotation. It's talking about hinge. Club is still outside your hands the whole time, Andy. Let's try changing the club position. Okay, so it's figured that out. It's giving me that range. The club can be as outside as I want. As soon as I get it behind my hands on the backswing. Okay, so this one in combination with the Faldo one would be quite good. Because at least then you're going to be getting the club in a good spot. You're good. So as soon as the club's on plane, as soon as they get it quite a bit inside, a little inside's fine. It's good. It's happy as. Cool. It's a good draw, especially if you're a player that is struggling to get the club on plane. Going back, if you struggle with the old hands going out, club going in, you're going to get that feedback straight away, right? Which is good. That's what any good training aid will do, is give you instant feedback how to do what it feels like to do something different. If you're a player that does do this, you're going to feel like you're almost you're going to feel like you're almost doing a bunker shot takeaway to get used to that. Now obviously from there, that's when the next drill, like the MotoCycle Drill or something, is going to be super good to get used to feeling what does it feel like to take your wrist from this more of an extension position than what you're used to working into flexion. Good drill. Again, I have not actually seen or used that one, and that's going to be super handy with some players that I work with. Obviously, in case of know thyself a little bit, what are my problems? It's going to be the interesting part. Let's show you that MotoCycle Drill. Cool. So this one is one of my absolute favorites. It puts it all together. I love those new takeaway drills. Set up, beautiful, get to the backswing, and then from here, to get used to what it feels like as the club's coming down, to get the wrists staying flat. Super handy. And then keep going. I love to feel more close than that because I like to see it go. See, my preference is to have the face close to the path. So I'm always going to be tethering on that side of having it too much flexion. Why? Because as I have my club face more bowed, more closure, I'm allowing my club to be behind my hands and the face close to the path. So I can swing to the right and know the golf ball's always curving back to the left. So one tricky thing with any of this stuff is understanding what ball flight is it trying to preference it on. I'm assuming that this drill is certainly if I'm a slicer, you'll see the difference here. If I get the top and I have a cupped wrist and I come down like this, I'm way out of range. So for this guy to suddenly get his wrists more into the spot, his right elbow's going to kick in and suddenly he's on plane. So if you're a slicer, that's going to give you extraordinarily good feedback what it feels like to actually come through and be in the right spot as you come through. To reduce your slice, to turn it more neutral. If you're trying to hit a fade, you're going to be on the more extension side of the thing. If you're trying to hit a draw, you'll be more on the flexion side of it as you're coming down and through the golf ball. There is no perfect, and I certainly wouldn't suggest trying to hit straight shots all the time. You want to have the ball falling in a predictable fashion to the left or to the right, because that's going to give you more consistency. But these are going to give you a huge amount of feedback. So again, if I'm trying to hit a tight draw, so again my face maybe 2 or 3 degrees close to my path, it's going to be 3 or 4 degrees. I'm going to get at the top, and then I want to have my wrist staying on the more in the range or even more closed than the range would allow. It's good. And then it'll show me a little thing afterwards of what it looked like. So I should be able to swing this one at normal speed. Yeah, and it gives me a lovely little green thing telling me I was all the way through. So I love that motorcycle drill, especially for players that don't know what it feels like to get the wrist to go into flexion. That's the hardest part. But that's a good example of what's happened in the last, say, 6 months of using this product. Is it has, in range, well done, Andy. It has quite literally improved itself as a product. Like they actually are useful takeaway drills there that you as a player can at home, without hitting golf balls, stand there and work away in your living room, get your takeaway right. On the range, without a golf coach or whatever, by yourself, you can have your earpiece in or whatever, you can stand there and work on getting a beautiful takeaway. And then from a good takeaway, you can learn what it feels like to actually use your wrists. So as a training tool, little HackMotion keeps getting better, which is fantastic. All right, that's the end of this little video. I'd love to hear your feedback or your thoughts on the HackMotion product, what you've used, what you've found good or bad or indifferent. If there are any specific drills that aren't in there that you think should be in there, I'd love to hear about them, or how you've trained or used it. If you've done the benchmark stuff, what you've found has been good or bad with that. And yes, as always, there is a discount code in the bottom with a referral link. If you want to use that, it's going to save you some dollars at checkout with the HackMotion. And if you're a golf coach and you're thinking about getting the HackMotion, I can say it is a useful bit of kit that keeps getting better. You will find students actually get helpful feedback from it, and you'll be amazed at the power of the haptic feedback and the acoustic as to, wow, they're actually gonna get it. So happy to say it's a good product. It is actually good value for money, especially when there isn't a continuous subscription that keeps showing up that you have to pay just to damn keep the thing unlocked. All right, thanks for your time, guys. I really appreciate it as always, and we will definitely see you in the next one.